So next, we will have a panel discussion on experiences of discrimination and stigma. This is going to be moderated by Dr. Edlyn Peña. And Dr. Peña is the director and professor of the Education Leadership Doctoral Program at Cal Lutheran. As a scholar and director of the Autism and Communication Center, Dr. Peña's service to the autistic community has reached international audiences. Her edited books, titled Communication Alternatives in Autism, published in 2019, and titled Leaders Around Me, also published in 2019, feature prominent autistic individuals who advocate for communication and inclusion rights. So, Dr. Peña, thank you so much for moderating this panel discussion, and I now invite you to introduce your panel members.
Great, thank you, Dr. Rivera. I want to thank the UC Davis Center for the Mind and Brain and the panelists, who I will introduce in a moment. And I also want to thank the audience for joining us today. It's my honor to facilitate this session. It highlights an important issue that must be explored and confronted. As you know, we're talking about stigma and discrimination. I'm looking forward to hearing from our autistic panelists who will share their vulnerable experiences around stigma and discrimination. The session will also cover perspectives of parents who desire to support their children in combating stigma and discrimination. As many of you already know, there's a lot of work to be done in this area. We need to improve the public's attitudes and treatment of people on the spectrum. Autistic individuals involved in media and research studies have reported feeling invisible as students, community members, and employees. Others report experiencing judgment and feeling misunderstood. But we know that stigma is particularly problematic because it leads to discrimination and social isolation. It can affect an autistic individual's mental health and well-being. Discrimination becomes destructive, especially because it can lead to exclusion of lifelong opportunities, resources, and support. This is why it's important for the audience to be with us here today. My hope for this session is that the presentations and discussion will educate the public about how to mitigate stigmatizing ideas and enacted discrimination. I'm also thrilled that our small but mighty panel includes the perspectives of non-speaking individuals and individuals of color. We have a lot to learn. So without further ado, let's get started. I'll call on each panelist to introduce themselves first, then we will have them share their presentations, and that will be followed by a question and answer period. So first, I'd like to call on Benita Shaw to introduce herself as a parent of an autistic adult, or I don't know, adult or teen.
Yes, he is. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or should I say good afternoon, from wherever you're coming from. My name is Benita Shaw. I am a single mom of 2 boys. My oldest is in college in San Diego. My youngest, Christopher Ayala, is on the spectrum, was diagnosed at 2.5. He is non-speaking. He uses a communication device when he chooses to. I'd wish he'd be a little bit more fluent in that, but when I speak further on in the presentation, you'll find out a little bit more about why and what I feel those challenges were. I also work here at the Mind Institute in the Resource Center, and I do have my own foundation that I've started due to some of the challenges that I have as a person of color and raising a young gentleman who is Black, Latino, and has a disability. So I thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to speaking to you more later on.
And we'll turn to Robert. Robert Levy is a developmental disability advocate at the Mind Institute. Robert?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me for this panel presentation talk. Hello, my name is Robert Levy, and I just wanted to say I work for the UC Davis Mind Institute, University's first center for excellence on developmental disabilities. I also am a member for the statewide self-advocacy network, which I'm the chair for the newsletter and communication work group, and also the secretary for the statewide self-advocacy network So I also am a member for the California Self-Advocacy, and also the Coordinated Future Planning Task Force with Alta Regional Center, and they're both in Sacramento. And of course, the statewide self-advocacy network is in the state of California. So they're all three there. So anyways, I've been working at the UC Davis Mines Institute for 10 years now. And I wanted to say is I will be looking forward to explaining to you what I'll be talking about of my presentation about of my accomplishments, some of my accomplishments today. So thank you, and I guess we'll move on.
Thank you so much, Robert. Great. We appreciate you introducing yourself. And our next presenter is Vanessa Bieker. Am I saying your last name correctly, Vanessa? Perfect.
Yes.
Vanessa is a parent of John, who is with her today. So both of them will be together, and Vanessa will introduce herself. And John.
And John. Hi, I'm Vanessa, and this is my son, John. John is 27 years old. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 18 months old. He is a runner. He has competed in several marathons, 50Ks. He ran the Boston Marathon twice, most recently on October 11th for the second time. His goal is to run the Western States 100-mile race. So he is in training right now for a marathon on December 5th here in Sacramento, which is CIM. And I'm actually running that marathon as well, probably 3 times as long as it'll take him to run it. And then he'll run some 50-mile races next month. So we started a nonprofit known as the Fly Brave Foundation here in Sacramento. All of our programs and services are free. And we were started saving 5 years ago for our first brick and mortar location that we moved into on April 1st. So we provide employment training through a thrift store type setting here in Sacramento. Do you enjoy working there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm impressed by the Boston Marathon experiences you've had, John. All righty. So with that, we appreciate hearing from the introductions, and next we'll go ahead and get started with the presentations and shares of experiences. So we will start with Benita. Benita, if you want to pull up your PowerPoint, you said you would be sharing, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Again, as I stated, my name is Benita. This is Christopher. And the reason why I chose to do this slight little presentation as I present to you today in regards to Christopher and being his voice. He is not present here with me because he doesn't like to kind of sit here on Zoom. So I figured it would be a good way, because he's a visual learner like his mother, that I would share a little bit about him and how you'll hear some of the things I share in regards to what Eric spoke about, the other presenters spoke about. You'll hear some of that challenges and some of the things they spoke about in their presentation with my son today. As I stated, Christopher is 19 and he is non-speaking. He enjoys being out in the community. As you see here, there was a lot of challenges with him when he communicated with being out in the community, because you figure most people, it's a struggle for him to get his needs and wants met if I am not around there with him. So I wanted to share some of the things that he enjoyed doing in the community, where he enjoys truly shopping and taking the time to do that. He enjoys going to church and taking that time to be in church. And you'll see that picture that's on the left with the windows. It's just, I don't know, it just, to me, I wanted to make sure you got a picture of him and his journey and our journey together as a person with a disability. This right here also shows something that he really enjoys doing. And I also bring these pictures up because in these spaces, while these pictures that I'm showing are not places where we had, where there's a stigma or discrimination, it had happened in some of these areas as we were going into some of these places. I mean, obviously the church, the picture we have here is at his church, but I share these things also because there were times when we went to other churches that I felt that because of the fact that he made noises or he was too loud, and it was his way of communicating, because I think that everybody has a language, you know. I always would always say, instead of nonverbal, I would always say to people that Christopher's first language is body language, because we all speak with our body first. Most people don't realize that, but I've even learned a lot about being around him and him teaching me things about language, because I truly had to be attentive to his reactions, his looks, his eyes. You know, the previous presenter talked about tracing of eyes. You know, you notice these things when your loved one cannot verbally speak out the things that they need and want. So, you know, just even here, when we speak of the other picture, we talked about where he's at the pool, you know, in that area. You know, while yet he loved being there, there was always some type of challenge in regards to him being able to communicate. When he had to get out, he was frustrated. So a lot of times people saw his anger and his frustration and what they call where he was kind of tapping or biting as a way, as a negative. But if you cannot get your words and thoughts out, that is a form of communication. And it, for me and with him, it was always a struggle because it was always so negative. And I think that hindered him in so many different ways in being educated and being able to have that opportunity to know, for people to take that time to realize that, you know, there's someone in there who is smart, you know, and deserves that opportunity to be taught and have that expectation, as Eric spoke about earlier. He deserves that just like everyone else, to be able to have those dreams and hopes just like everyone else. And I think that stigma of not being able to speak, he has been stripped of that, you know, personally, along with not being able to speak. His size, which I did not include. My son is about 6'9", you know, and that too has also been a struggle for us. So the reason why I shared this picture here is because, you know, I felt he didn't get that opportunity to be able to go to college. But these are some trips that I took when we went to Fresno State. He got to stay on campus. We went there for a retreat with our church. The other one where he's looking at figuring out who this statue is on the campus of UC San Diego, where his brother attended school to work on his bachelor's degree. And just to be able to educate him those things in myself. You also see in his picture down here is that's his device that he carries. And the reason why I put the sign of faith, because it's truly my faith that has got us through the multitude of different journeys and challenges that we've had. And I will leave you with this. He is a true gift from God for me. This young man has changed my life. Both of my boys had, but he's opened up opportunities. He's made me realize to see the simple things in life, and grateful that I'm able to express my words on my own. Because while he yet struggles to do that, it truly has been a way that people have mistreated him, felt that he was less than, treated him as if he was less than, and when he's incapable to do things, and have not had that opportunity as others have. So that was my timer to say that my time was up, because I was timing myself. But I truly wanted to leave you this, that I would not change this young man, because autism doesn't define who he is. It's only something that created a lack of some inabilities that he's had to be able to access things the way you and I do. So I thank you today for listening to me.
Next, we will call on Robert Levy. So Robert, if you don't mind, we're going to just go to you next and have you deliver your presentation. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say hello again. I'm Robert Levy, and I'm 51 years old, and I did a lot of different accomplishments. Like I was in numerous schools when I was a child. Like I was in a music school in Cleveland, Ohio. I was I even went to even when I went to lived in Miami, Florida, I wasn't taking music lessons again. Besides I played the drums, learned how to play the drums, I also learned how to play the guitar. And then I also did swim lessons and been part of the team, such as the track team and cross-country team here in Sacramento. And I also did martial arts, which is I did Taekwondo and got a brown belt. No, a red belt, sorry. Red belt in Taekwondo and brown belt in Kempo Karate, to help build my self-confidence. I also had a bar mitzvah, which is a twinning. It's at the temple I went to, they weren't capable, didn't think I was capable enough to have a bar mitzvah. But then my parents hired tutors for me to have a bar mitzvah, to learn the English version and the Hebrew version, to have the Jewish ceremony. So all boys, including myself and being Jewish, should be able to have a bar mitzvah, including people with disabilities. So I had my bar mitzvah, and I had a standing ovation on that, and I had a speech. And then when I went into high school, I took track and cross country. I even did that in junior high. And then once I graduated from high school, I got voted for most unique in high school. And then during my high school graduation, I got a standing ovation in my class. After the high school, I went into the California Conservation Corps. I went to basic training and got voted for most inspirational. I had, after 6 months after basic training, I was sent home due to not getting enough support to know what is not to be saying disciplinary actions of what I wasn't supposed to be saying. So I was sent home, and then I decided I wanted to come back. So I came back, and I graduated from the Conservation Corps, California Conservation Corps at the time. I got a standing ovation in my graduation, and I gave a speech again. And then I had numerous jobs after the Conservation Corps, but then I also got into a shelter workshop, which I was making sub-minimum wage, making about 33 cents an hour. And then I got an employee of the month, and I asked them, when will I get a real job? And then because I got an employee of the month, they said I wasn't ready. They said that I asked them again if I was going to get a real job. They said I wasn't really ready to get a real job. So I quit the workshop because I was going to be there for the rest of my life. They weren't going to get me a real job. So I now work I went to a supportive employment agency called Progressive Employment Concepts, and they got me a job at both the UC Davis Mind Institute, where I'm working today, and also Progressive Employment Concepts, where I'm making minimum wage, not sub-minimum wage. That was what I was at the shelter workshop. Apologize that. So I'm now making minimum wage, which I just helped to get that law passed. So now we're going to do it 2025 is we're going to be having the state of California being minimum wage and sub-minimum wage will be ending. And that's a good thing of California. So I also got employed of the month again at Progressive Employment Concepts, where I'm currently working now. And that's a good thing because now I'm making both minimum wage and 33 cents an hour you can't make a living. And that's what I was happy about. And I also done some legislation work, even with the state of California, and also for the national. I'm sorry for I have forgotten to say all that to you at the introduction. But I think that I don't think anybody with a disability should all deserve to be paid minimum wage or above, just like everyone else. And it was wrong for people with disabilities to be saying you got to work a shelter workshop for the rest of your life. They should all have a chance to go out and work at competitive and integrated employment, just like everyone else. Even if after you graduate high school, even if you graduate from college, they should all have the opportunity just to go right into integrated competitive employment, just like everyone else. And we're all equal, and we all should not be segregated. So, and I was going to say thank you for listening to my talk. And one more thing, I was also on the radio and even talked about my experiences of being my work experience of getting from going into a shelter workshop and going into integrated competitive employment. And I got a standing applause about that too. So, so hopefully whatever I said will get the message, and that if anybody has any questions, you can put it at the KU, but that's all I got to say. So I'll let you move on to the next speaker, but thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me out, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Robert. That was excellent. We loved hearing about all of the things you've accomplished, and congratulations on assisting with getting the bill passed to get rid of sub-minimum wage in California. Sounds like you've done a lot, and I'm sure the audience has questions for you. So we'll be excited to have that discussion after the next couple of presentations. Thanks,
You're
Robert.
welcome.
All right, so next we'll have Vanessa go to present about her experiences with John, and feel free to take it away, Vanessa. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I introduced us earlier. John is 27 and he is non-speaking and he is a runner. And with John, he was diagnosed at a time when there wasn't social media, there wasn't Hey Google. It was pretty much going to the library and going to parent support groups to kind of figure out what worked for other people, different activities that we could try. And I think my greatest memory and something that helped me the most is I was in a parent group, and one of the therapists said just to immerse him in the world, give him every life experience possible. And he had sensory issues. So when we would go to the grocery store or to the park, he would cry. And I thought that he was crying because he just didn't want to be there. But what I later on realized and learned through this group is that with sensory, the noise and the sounds and the visuals were so overwhelming for him that it actually physically hurt him. So we started using noise canceling headphones, and we would start going to Capitol Park 3 times a week for 5 to 6 minutes at a time just to introduce him to these sounds and these noises. And I continued to take him to the grocery store. And when it became overwhelming, we would step outside and we would go to church, and we would stand in the very back of the church. And if he, ended up being too loud or something like that, we would kind of step into the lobby and give him time to gain his center and come back. And so it was all of these things at a very young age, starting him on all of these processes when he was about 5 years old, that just progressed into who he is today. He loves concerts and camping and fishing, swimming. What else do you like to do? Running for sure, right? But as a single parent, if I wanted to go camping, John was going camping. We love to go fishing. So John would go out there and go fishing. So I just really just try to give him every life experience possible. Right? Are you doing okay today? Are you doing all right today?
Night.
Night? Yes, you can. Yes, we're going to spend the night later, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry, getting back off track. It was kind of a long night for us last night. So with John, when he was going through puberty, delayed puberty, I started taking him for walks at night to kind of expend some energy before dinner. And a high school track was open, and he started running around the track, and he had the best night of his sleep ever. And that led into his running career, signing him up for the Special Olympics. And he was running a 5-minute mile, and he was learning the form and fundamentals and foundation out there with that. And so we entered him in 5 and 10K races. The thing I want to say with John's running career is, being non-speaking, the doors didn't just open for him. So he's run the Boston Marathon twice. He's run 50Ks. He's training for the Western States 100. But it really took John going out there and his talent and his hard work and his determination speaking for himself, because I reached out to different coaches and running groups to take him on. And being non-speaking, I couldn't really find anybody that wanted to take on the responsibility or the liability of that. So I Googled and YouTubed and created a plan for him, the best that I could, not knowing anything about running and your diet and nutrition. I just knew that my son had a gift here. He was happiest when I took him out running, and I wanted to give him every experience possible in this to see where it was going to go. And after he competed in a few races, we were able to secure a coach that took him on and started teaching him the fundamentals and the basics. And he started running half marathons and 20 milers and his first marathon. And from there, he just started inspiring people in groups. Every single race that he would enter, at the end of the race, we would have people come over and want to take a picture and just hug him, saying, "You have inspired me." And so we always say nonverbal does not mean unable. John has a landscaping business. He mows lawns. He helps do everything at the shop. He did the floor, painted, helps clean up everything. He can do absolutely anything and everything he puts his mind to. And the other thing is even though he is non-speaking, people ask how we communicate. So we do a little bit of sign language, his hand-eye coordination. Sometimes we have to make up our own signs for that. But also he understands everything. So for instance, we were leaving yesterday and I left my purse, and he was saying yellow. You tell them what color this is.
Yellow.
So he was saying that. And I was just like, oh, my purse. He knew I had left it there and I didn't have it with me. And so we had to go back inside. He's just brilliant. And so he understands direction, takes direction. We had a customer come in and was asking where the women's jeans were. She had no idea he was non-speaking, and she asked for jeans. So he pointed to the men's jeans and she said, "Oh, the women's jeans." So he walked her over and pointed to those and walked off, and she had no idea she was interacting with someone who was non-speaking. So with John, where he's at, his level of success with running, finding his passion and turning it into purpose, that was all earned, not given. He had to work twice as hard as other people for that. And his story, I feel you inspire me.
Yeah.
He inspired me enough to sign up for a marathon. So he continues. You want to show him your cute face? There you are. Yeah. So so if you want to read more about John, you could visit our website at flybrave.org, and on the About Us, there's a movie, and it's a story of John from the beginning. It was a little lengthy to be able to show you here at this platform, but you can visit our website and read more about us and John. And if you're in Sacramento, you can come visit our store at 5901 Broadway in Sacramento, next to Bacon and Butter. And anything else you would like to say? Oh, you show them? Love. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, John and Vanessa. I loved hearing about all of the accomplishments that John has achieved, and that is very exciting to hear about, the opportunities and community participation, and of course the Boston Marathon, which that is huge. So we look forward to any questions that come up for John and Vanessa in the future. We do have one more presentation. David was able to share his presentation via video, so I will go ahead and play that for everybody, and maybe if he's available during the Q&A, he'll be able to join us at that time. For now, we'll watch this wonderful video of his experiences as a non-speaking student who types to communicate.
Hello, my name is David Teplitz. I was very fortunate to have been born into a family that was able to fight for my right to a typical education, and was able to afford the multitude of therapies that gave me access to a means of communication. I do not really remember the time before I had access to these things that are common to most individuals. Therefore, I have not often felt many of the stings of discrimination from public institutions that many of my peers have felt. I am very grateful for this privilege, and feel it is my responsibility to make sure others have easier access to these basic human rights. However, I have often felt the pain that comes from the stigma of being a non-speaking autistic, apraxic individual. In our society, people perceive the non-speaking to be intellectually disabled. People see someone like me, who cannot speak, and who often cannot control his body movements, and they assume that I also do not have a functioning brain. My brain may function differently than most people, but I have never had any trouble in understanding what is happening in the world around me, and I find most academic pursuits quite easy. In some ways, having autism and apraxia has made me a better student. Whenever a teacher or professor has expressed doubts about my capacity, I work especially hard to make sure that I get a perfect score in that class. I feel that exposure to someone like me, who does well in a classroom, will help both teachers and other students understand that non-speaking folks are just as academically capable as they are, and that we have unlimited potential. My good friend, Hari Srinivasan, and I are the only non-speaking minimally speaking autistics at the University of California, Berkeley. I think our combined GPA of 3.95 qualifies us for the demographic with the highest GPA at Cal. How's that for showing them? Sadly, I think that breaking the stigma of academic intellectual problems is much easier than breaking all the social stigmas surrounding autism, especially non-speaking autism. People often assume that because I cannot speak and often even have trouble with eye contact, that I do not want to communicate with them. Nothing could be further from the truth. I could go on forever on this topic, but will instead focus on a few ways that this affects most non-speakers almost daily. One way this happens is that people often ignore my presence. If I am fortunate enough to actually have my presence acknowledged, people often speak to my aide instead of directly to me. They ask him or her questions instead of me. How would you feel if this happened to you? Being non-speaking requires me to use an augmentative communication device. In my case, an iPad. My apraxia makes me a very slow typer. Another irritating habit that the typical population has is that even if they do attempt to have a conversation with me, they often end up finishing my sentences for me. Here is a demonstration on just how long it can take me to type. My typing is so slow. As you can see, I know that my typing is terribly slow, and that even the most patient of people do not have the time wait for me to finish my sentences, but it is hurtful nonetheless. If you had had to wait for me to type this presentation, we would have been here all day. I do not know how to fix these problems. I can only hope with exposure to more people like myself, the typical population will become more understanding of our situation. Educators, therapists, and the medical community need to do a better job of getting non-speakers access to communication. There is strength in numbers. The more non-speakers with means to communication will create more exposure, better understanding, and hopefully eliminate this stigma. Thank you for your time today.
Excellent, David. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for sharing that. And the video was really powerful to remind us what it is like to communicate from your perspective. So we appreciate that video and all of the amazing things you've accomplished, especially being at UC Berkeley is amazing. And we look forward to learning more about you if you're able to join us later. So with that, we have had all four presenters present their presentations. And what we'll do now is we'll open it up to questions and answers. I'm going to start with my own question, and then I'll field some of the questions from the Q&A box with the help of Dr. Rivera and Patrick Dwyer. And so with my first question, I'd like to ask the panelists, if you don't mind putting your videos on if you're able to. My first question is, if the people listening right now want to work on challenging their own stigma or their own stigmatizing thoughts about disabled people, what suggestions would you have for them? Where should they start?
I would truly start with kind of looking within, because I think sometimes stigma comes from, or discrimination comes from, the lack of knowledge or the lack of understanding. And I say that because prior to having my son, Christopher, I didn't know, wasn't in the part of the autism world. So I could see how a thought and how someone could respond like Christopher did would kind of set me back. But it was my lack of knowledge. And if I could say this word, my ignorance to the disability or that understanding. So I think a lot of it comes to start from within, because I will tell you that the times people have approached me in regards to my son, I was grateful, because that time it gave me that opportunity to educate them on what they were asking, and they went away knowing more. And I love that phrase where knowledge is power. So to me, ask questions, why people think that they think that most of us are not approachable. even listening to David just talk, I think all of the panelists who are here would say, ask me for a better understanding. And then you go away learning so that when you come back, there would be a different expectation from you.
I think the best way to fight discrimination is by knowing your rights. This is very difficult, and often it is necessary to hire an attorney for more serious infractions. I like to think that just by being out in the community and showing people what I am capable of, that I am educating others about what they can achieve and deserve access to.
Excellent, David. Thank you. Yes, knowing your rights is really important. And you've been a huge advocate yourself, so you're modeling for others how to do that. Thank you. I believe we have a question. Dr. Rivera, do you want to read that out loud from the audience?
Yes, I'd be happy to. There's a question for Robert. Do you think that the sheltered workshop experience was a necessary step before your entry into the general workplace? From your experience of passing the minimum wage law, do you think that such sheltered workshops can continue to exist without the option of paying sub-minimum wage? So that's from a genuinely curious participant.
Well, I think that people with disabilities should have the right to have a chance to work into competitive and integrated employment. And if they have no other choice and they have to go to the shelter workshop, they have to. But I think that people like me and some others out in the community who are capable of working out into competitive integrated employment should have the right to work into competitive and integrated employment, and not be saying this is where you're going to work for the rest of your life at a shelter workshop. I think we're all equal. We're all equal, and we should all not be segregated to. And it was wrong for them to say, well, I'm not capable of being into competitive and integrated employment and getting a real job. It was thanks to my support staff, well, thanks to my supervisor at the Mine Institute that helped me get the job at the Mine Institute in the first place. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been a self-advocate today. And also some of the support staff from Progressive Employment Concepts, where I provide services in which I'm a client of, who thought this would be a great job for Robert. So now that I work there, I have been giving good information out in the community and giving them information of what's happening and things like that, like the summit today or other things that were in the past. So that way that they know what's going on. So, and I'm a good self-advocate too. So if it wasn't for the Mine Institute and for me to be a shelter workshop, I wouldn't have been here today.
There was a quick question for Vanessa from someone who asked, do you take donations?
Yes, we do. We take donation. We don't take furniture right now because so this building, if you follow us on social media or you've followed our journey, when we leased this building was, for lack of a better word, a total dump. So we had to completely renovate it from the ground up. We didn't have a budget. We didn't have any professional help. We didn't have anything. So a group of moms joined forces with us and we completely renovated it from the ground up. So, and I'm saying this because the back of the building was a coffee shop. And for the time being, we were using it as storage for donations, but now we are starting renovations and turning it back into a coffee shop. We're renovating it. So it will be a thrift store and coffee shop. We're revitalizing it. So we're not able to take any furniture because there's no electrical or plumbing back there. And so we're working on that right now. But our greatest need is men's clothing. So men's clothing goes out the door the quickest. So men's clothing, women's handbags, and jewelry and shoes. So we have an abundance of children's clothes and jackets and shoes and things like that, but menswear, purses, shoes, and housewares. So we can always use those. And we take donations on Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. at our location. And we're a nonprofit, so you can have a receipt, you can write it off. So, and John loves to unload all the cars and bring everything in. Show them your muscles, how strong you are, guys. Look at this. Yep. Bring your donations. Muscle man right here. I'll bring them in for you. I know you're so tired, huh?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Night.
That was great.
You want to go to night?
Night.
Hold on.
So I have another question I'd like to ask the panelists. Since we've been really exploring, you know, how you've overcome stigma and discrimination. But for those autistic individuals or even their caregivers who are currently feeling like they're experiencing stigma or discrimination, what advice do you have for them in terms of, especially with discrimination when it's overt or it's obvious? What advice would you have for autistic individuals or their caregivers to navigate that?
For me, I will tell you this was a very hard question to think about and to give feedback on, because I believe, I don't say I should believe, discrimination is a part of my life that happens every day. So I truly try to stay within my faith and belief and realize that everybody needs to be treated equal and everybody needs to be treated as human. So I try to portray that in every aspect of when I go out, especially when it's not being given to me or my son. So I will say that through the journey of life of education in different systems, I truly always try to make sure that for myself, that I make sure I stay abreast of the laws, regulations, policies, and make sure that he is treated fairly. He's getting access to the things that he is deserving of anyone, no matter what their race, ethnicity, gender, or whatever the case may be. But to be totally honest with you, it is a challenge because you're requiring people to change, right? Not to change, but they have a mindset and they're set in their ways. And, you know, as most of us, we can't change the color of our skin, nor can we change that our child has a disability, nor could I change that my son is not tall. You know, I mean, he's 6'9". So that is a tall gentleman. And I know because of him, there is that fear factor that adds to that. I cannot shrink him. So it is a hard thing to deal with on a daily basis. But I know for me, I know that I have to stay and have a clean heart and truly emanate the way I want people to treat me and him. And I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind and try not to prejudge others as they would prejudge myself or my son.
I appreciate that you brought up the sort of the intersectionality of race and disability and how it just adds more layers of complications. So it's important to highlight that piece in a lot of discussions around discrimination for the disability community. Thank you. Vanessa and then David, I see both of you have your mics unmuted.
I just wanted to add to that when speaking to John, John is so aware and he understands everything that's going on. And there are times, you know, I had John when I was young. So there was a time when I felt like I always had to fight back. So if someone had said something to him in public, or he was stimming and they were rude to him, he understands, he feels all of that. He knows what you're saying. I mean, he might be non-speaking, but he's aware, he's alive in the world. And so when I was younger, I just felt like I always had to fight back, like, excuse me, we need to have, you know. And now as I've gotten older, I've realized that all of those are teachable lessons for people for awareness. So when something is said or something comes up, even in our store, when people walk in and they're unfamiliar or unsure, I tell them, welcome to our home. You're going to learn a lot of things about ASD and our families and our clients here. So I kind of say it like, when we go into the ocean and there's sharks out there, right? We're swimming around in their territory. And so it's like when people walk into our home or into our business, they're coming in to learn more about us. And so I guess for non-speaking, I would just like to say, please be kind with your words, because what is said in the moment, sometimes with John, it doesn't kick in until later in that day. So something could have happened in the community and it's 2 to 3 hours later, he's at home and he's reflecting on it. And that's when feelings of sadness and things like that kick in. So I would just like to tell everyone to be kind. I know people say that all the time, be kind, but you know, these people teach us. Thank you for making me a better person. And thank you, all of you guys out there. It's like, thank you for teaching me every day. And I just want to say, they, non-speaking people, understand everything. So everything you're saying, like for John, he's comprehending it. So just be kind. Is that right? You agree?
Yeah.
You agree with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Vanessa and John. David.
Being a non-speaker, I think it is important that everyone has access to a way to communicate. This is a fundamental human right, and it is so often denied to us. For so long, people have assumed that non-speaking meant non-thinking. As a society, we need to understand that non-speakers, especially those with severe apraxia, need various methodologies to have communicate, and that one methodology does not work for all of us. We require individual strategies to succeed. Everyone deserves a way to communicate.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Yes, the discrimination piece around the form of communication that is being used is a big deal in the autism community. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront of your comments about that. So we have a few minutes left. I'm sorry I won't be able to get to all of the questions in the Q&A box, but one question that if any of you would like to answer, this is coming from an autistic individual who teaches and has a private practice for educational equity. This person asks or says, I'm an autism mentor, and I'm wondering about what ways mentorship can support families, caregivers, independent autistic folks, and schools.
I know for us and for a lot of the families that we serve, they're always looking for a friend, and they're always looking for someone to go out into the community and do things with. And being someone that is also living the journey with them and understands it, I feel there's a huge need for that. We're always, I think the first question I get when I have parents reach out about our program, the first thing that they say is the social component. My child's just looking for a friend, someone to text, someone to do things with. And don't we all want a friend? We all want purpose in our life, a warm home and a friend and something meaningful to get up and do every day. And so I think mentorship is so important. I see some of the adults in our program mentor those that are in junior high and high school, and it's been a beautiful partnership.
There is a question for Benita, if you'd be willing to answer. This particular question, it says, there is an issue that several kinds of research techniques are very Eurocentric. As an example, the EEG cap and gelling administration may be more difficult for participants with Black hair types. How can one advocate for facilitating the extension of research techniques that welcome and promote inclusion of participants from all races? It's kind of a big question, so feel free to.
No pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
I guess I will start off being that I'm at the Mind Institute, and there's a lot of things. I'll be honest with you, one of the things that I did not do when Christopher was younger was research, because of a lot of those different things. I don't think that, and I don't mean this in a bad type of light. I think that people don't take those type of things into consideration, and I don't know why. So I think for me, it would basically start off with parents advocating for that, because if you're not aware of the texture of someone's hair or what have you, that is a factor that needs to be expressed. So it could start off being expressed in documentation. I know that most people don't. We talk about documentation and data, but in the reports when you're working and you're in research with families in their clinical file, right? For me, that would be a good point for Christopher, because of the fact of his texture of his hair. That would be a factor for him, and most even for me. So that's something that I would always consider to do, but people not necessarily aware of it. So I think the continue to bring awareness, to continue to talk about that will kind of push more talk to get it more into the research type areas and clinic type settings, that parents need to continue to speak on the things that they need when they're entering into that space, which I find that most parents tend not to do. And I get that, because sometimes us being vocal can be considered in a different type of light. I've experienced that, being a person that's vocaling out. Maybe my tone or whatever case was taken wrong because I'm a woman of color. So know that there's always those times that we not say that, because we're going to be looked at in a manner because of our tone and how we approached it. But I would encourage families to continue to do that, because your voice matters, and your child, your loved one needs to be heard if they cannot express that themselves.
Wonderful, Benita. That was beautifully said. Thank you so much for that. We are at time, but there were a few people who, if Vanessa and Benita, if you want to type in the information of your nonprofits in the Q&A or the chat to everyone, that would be helpful for folks who have been asking about more information to get in touch with you about your nonprofits or donations or learning more. I had a really wonderful time learning from all of you. I want to say thank you to Robert, David, Vanessa, and John, and Benita. You all educated us today, so we want to thank you for enlightening us and for highlighting this important topic and how to navigate stigma and discrimination.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with a promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.